Before I moved to Dubai, the thing that I would hear from absolutely everyone is that in Dubai, you cannot live without a car. In Dubai, you have to drive everywhere. And as someone who doesn't like to drive, this was a big drawback and something that I was considering as a potential reason not to move to Dubai. But now I've actually lived in Dubai for almost 3 years, and still to this day, I have not owned a single car. I have rented a car for very short periods, sometimes let's say when my family was visiting or something like that, but at almost all times I have not had a car accessible to me. And in this video I will break down exactly why, in my experience, buying a car in Dubai actually doesn't make sense, at least for someone like me, and I will show you how you can absolutely live in Dubai without owning a car. So of course, don't get me wrong, it is true that Dubai is a car-centric city, no doubt about it. This is not a city where you can just walk everywhere, although within each area where you are living, for example, I'm living in Dubai Creek Harbor, within the area itself, I can walk everywhere, but if I want to go to a different area, there is no chance, like it's physically impossible for me to like walk to downtown or something like that, even if I was willing to walk for a long distance. And also in addition, the public transport system here is not amazing. Now, they have a metro that is clean, that is efficient, everything like that, but it just doesn't cover too many areas. Now, they are expanding it, it's going to improve over time, but Dubai is a car-centric city, so I'm not about to tell you like, yeah, I get around in the amazing public transport or something like that. What I am telling you is that instead of driving a car myself, I use what is called Careem. So Careem is UAE's ride-hailing app. And in this video, I'm going to break down from both a lifestyle perspective on what you actually prefer to do, and also financial perspective, actually doing the very precise math of how much it costs me to take Careems everywhere versus owning a car, on why for me it doesn't make sense to own a car. And I think this might be very interesting to you if you are also someone like me who perhaps doesn't like to drive unless it is absolutely necessary. So first, obviously, we have the lifestyle considerations. So I am not a car person, like at all. I do not enjoy driving. I don't find it fun. I find it quite stressful, actually, especially in Dubai, because the road design is not always so good and the traffic is terrible and things like that. I generally get stressed when I'm driving, which also makes it worse for my health because it's not good to be stressed all the time and things like that. So if at all possible, I try to avoid driving a car wherever it is that I am living. I simply prefer the experience of sitting in a car that someone else is driving. Let someone else deal with the traffic, the lanes, keeping us alive, things like that. And I can simply sit in the back seat in a nice car, perhaps be on my phone, answer emails, answer messages, like even do work on my phone or something like that, which is what I oftentimes do. So for me personally, if the cost was equal, I would prefer to not own a car. I would prefer to just use the ride-hailing apps. But now talking about the financial side of things, because obviously if it was much cheaper to own, I would still do it, even though it is not my preferred thing to do. But surprisingly, when I do the math, it actually comes out much more affordable for me to take Careems than to own a car here in Dubai, at least for my specific lifestyle. Now we'll talk later about cases when owning does make sense. I'm just gonna run through the math to really show you and how you can also do the math yourself for your specific situation. So I calculated that in the past 30 days, I spent a total of 1,483 dirhams on Careems, and this is even on the higher end because in the past month I was moving into my new apartment. We were going to all kinds of places to buy furniture, we were going to Dubai Mall, we were going like doing a bunch of things. So this is basically in the upper end, so most of the time it will probably even be less than this, it will be more like 1,000 dirhams, but we'll just use this as like the highest that it can possibly be in a given month for me in Dubai. And we will compare this to the scenario of buying this Lexus car over here. So why are we using this car as an example? Well, basically, when you use Careems, oftentimes you will be sitting in a Lexus. This is a very common car for the drivers to be driving. So just to make these apples to apples in terms of the experience of which car you're sitting in, we will compare it to buying a similar car. And of course, you could go much cheaper, but then you could also go cheaper by using the cheaper versions of Careem, like the Hala taxi service instead of the normal comfort ride service. But as we will see, even if you bought a cheaper car, the result of these calculations actually wouldn't change that much. So my total cost when I am using Careems is pretty simple. It's just that number that we just saw before. But if I were to own a car, there are many categories of costs that we would need to add up. So first we have the cost of insurance that I would need to have, which if you just have third-party insurance would be around 1,000 dirhams per year. And if you have comprehensive insurance, it would be 4,000 dirhams a year. And I would probably get the comprehensive one. So that gives us the first cost item of 333 dirhams a month on average. And then you're gonna have registration and renewal fees for your car, which would come out to roughly 30 dirhams a month, again on average. And then when you are driving, there are tolls on the roads. They're called salik. So ChatGPT calculated for me that I did 31 trips based on all the trip history from past month that I gave it. So the salik cost is going to be 4 dirhams in non-peak hour and 6 dirhams in peak hour. So if we take 5 dirhams as the average and assuming, let's say 66%, so 2/3 of the trips would be going through salik. If I did the same exact trips by driving my own car, that would give us the figure of 102 dirhams spent on these tolls. Then you would have maintenance and repairs, which is obviously going to be super variable, but based on some averages and assumptions I got from online, we would assume from somewhere from perhaps 500 to 1,500 dirhams per year, giving us between 41 and 125 dirhams per month. So again, we just use the upper end of the figure, 125 dirhams per month. Then on fuel, according to ChatGPT, to do these exact same rides that I did by driving, the fuel cost would be 85 dirhams. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but also based on my experience of what fuel costs here and things like that, I think that's reasonably accurate. Then you have obviously washing, which you can do for 50 dirhams. So let's say I do that once a month, that would be 50 dirhams a month. So if you just put that stuff together, that's already 725 dirhams in total, which is already, before even considering the actual cost of the car itself and the opportunity cost and things like that, that's already taking us quite close to that Korean figure. But obviously there are also other like unexpected costs that do happen, especially for me, namely fines. Fines in Dubai are extremely high, and whenever I have rented a car, I would always get at least one fine. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a bad driver or something like that. And those fines can be like 200, 300, even 600 dirhams per fine, like depending on what happens. I would assume that I would want to budget at least 500 dirhams a month just on fines. And obviously there's also parking charges and things like that. So if you just put that also together into that one figure. So already when we just consider these non-recoverable costs, we're already getting a very similar figure to what it costs me to just take Careems everywhere. But obviously you also have the depreciation of the car, which again, I got ChatGPT to calculate it for me, which TLDR, it would come out to 16,600 dirhams per year for this specific car in Dubai, giving us a monthly figure of an average of 1,383 dirhams. So comparing the totals, by taking Careems, my total cost per month is that 1,483 dirham figure, or more likely like 1,000 dirhams or something like that, based on like how much I actually go to different places. Whereas with owning, it would cost a total of 2,708 dirhams. So even if the lifestyle consideration was not considered, it would be more expensive, literally more expensive for me to own a car here than to just use Careems. Now, does this mean that this is the case for everyone? Obviously not. Obviously, the more you drive, the more it's gonna make sense to own a car. A lot of people, if you're commuting to an office, if you have a very active social life, you're going around to meet people every single week, you have business meetings, things like that. In those cases, obviously it makes sense to own a car. But for me and for someone like me who works from home, I don't have a super active social life, and I live in an area that is walkable, where any restaurants I want to go to, I can just like go outside of my building. There's going to be a million of them out there. Most of the time, I don't need to leave the specific area where I live. So for someone like me, it actually makes no sense to own a car whatsoever. And I'm very glad that that is the case, because as we discussed, for lifestyle purposes, also that is my preference. Now, again, maybe for you, that is not your preference. I am not a car person. Maybe you are a car person. So for you, even if it is more expensive, maybe you might want to own a car anyway. Let's say you want to reward yourself, buy a nice car or something like that. By all means, obviously go for it. But for me, like, I just don't care about owning a car. I don't care even if it was a supercar or something like that. I just don't care about things like that. So for me, I'm perfectly happy to just take Careems. And for a lot of people, I can assume that it's going to be a nice thing to hear that you have the option of not having to drive if you don't want to, and it is absolutely feasible to live in Dubai without owning a car. If you want to see another video about life in Dubai, watch this video right here, and we'll see you in the next video.